Welcome, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving. Today, I've got a special treat in my chat with Maurice. We've included a very dear friend of ours. Her name is Kestrel, and she's actually knew Maurice many years before I did. And so she's a recent dear friend of mine. But you know how it is sometimes when you meet somebody and you feel like you've known them forever? Well, that's how it's like with Kestrel and I. We immediately clicked as the beautiful crone, wise wisdom, wise women that we are. So I'm so happy to have her here today. I have a special topic for us. But before we get into this, I just want to say a little bit about Kestrel. Kestrel, for 25, actually over 25 years, was a therapist and a psychotherapist and an executive business coach in New York City. And I tell you what, she is the queen of breaking patterns. She left 50 years of what her known life was to come out to the Southwest to start farming and to live a completely different life. And I love that about her. Kestrel and I I'll have her on here many more times as a special guest because I really love to plumb the depths of this beautiful woman. So, anyways, welcome for the first time on board, Kestrel. We're so happy to have you here with us.
This is so fun. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me. And
you are
Maurice,
so.
I love watching your Thursdays with Maurice because the same thing, Maurice, we knew right away. The talking just happens. And it is the kind of thing that if other people, sit down with you, they're like, wow, a lot of people would like to hear this. We're like, we're just talking.
We're just talking. That's it. Just talking. Well, today I have a very timely topic for us. And this is not just how to survive the holidays, but how to thrive through the holidays. And as a psychotherapist, Kestrel, I'm sure you're very well aware of what a trigger the holidays can be for people simply because of our childhoods and a mixture of things that happen with our families and friends during this time. It's definitely a time of heightened emotions for people where maybe we have all these expectations of getting together as family is supposed to be fun and we're supposed to fulfill all this family idea of what it's supposed to be like. And I don't know how often it actually measures up to that. But anyways, for years I suffered some PTSD from family, from my holiday experience. So I kind of want to go into that and kind of tap the wisdom on both of you, and we'll just see where it goes. The last couple of days, I did some little mini how to survive the holiday tips. And there's a series of 3 videos, and this is the third one right now. We're doing it. So I would love to hear a little bit wherever you want to take this. If you want to take it anecdotally about what your experience was as a child, or even more important, like what have you done in your life to really help you at this time of year, and some wisdom we can pass on to our listeners. So good starting point. Either of you, welcome to jump right in.
Go, Kestrel.
Okay, well, I got wind of the actual topic just a bit ago, but it's interesting timing. And I thought about the importance of tradition. And I think that's part of what the expectations come from having a tradition. For myself, my childhood Christmases were fraught with interesting things. And yet I still always had a heart for it. I still always wanted to decorate and stuff, but it was very different. So when I had children, I got into it like before, and it was an Italian family. So, and they celebrate a little bit differently on Christmas Eve. Um, but I wanted to provide my kids with the kind of Christmas I didn't have. And so that got me
Mm.
excited. But in terms of what it used to be like then when I moved to New Mexico in this whole different life, it's not the same as back east. Um, and then I thought about tradition, sentimentality, and why we hold on to the things that we do.
Mhm.
So, and then I've had the experience of having some Christmases alone, and I would get quite like melancholy. So the person I'm visiting now, we've had similar various experiences of Christmas. So we said, well, let's get together before the holidays, and and I made a pot of sauce. And my tradition was that I'd make sauce and watch Moonstruck. Then we watched It's a Wonderful Life. And those are the things that are lovely that I've kept with me. But all the materialism and the wrapping gifts and the pressure to cook, um, I've been able to keep that, whatever that childhood thing was, it wasn't always great, but just holding space. So it's interesting because it's a tradition, and I think maybe we hold on to those even more these days because everything's so disruptive. And then I'll just lastly say, to bring it current, the media, there's some pieces of the media that are saying like, if you have to go home and these people did such and such, you don't need to be near them. So it's just very like, Bolshevik revolution-ish of really decimating the things that people hold dear. Um, so it's an interesting time, and that's why my friend and I thought we'd get creative and just do things from our past Christmases that we loved. And
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That I think the tradition thing's real important. I have to say that's not like one of the things that motivates me. I had a similar, probably a very similar experience that you had growing up. Christmas for me and my family, it was tainted by alcohol and
Uh,
overconsumption of it.
same.
And an Italian mother that was very controlling and intense and was an incredible entertainer, but it was just so intense. It was so stressful that I didn't go back for Christmas once in my adult life and I moved away. I probably didn't go back for over 14 years. And I just didn't really want a whole lot to do with that, or even like the tradition. I didn't feel very sentimental about all of that. In fact, nowadays, my partner, I always send him, to go back to see his family for Christmas, and I stay alone with friends. And I'm really happy with that. I mean, it comes in a lot of different iterations for each of us. And, for me, that is okay. And, I see friends and I just kind of relax. They spend time with me, and I'm very happy to not have to do any of that stuff. And if I want to put up a little Christmas tree, whatever size, I'll put that up. But I think one of the things that you touched on, Kestrel, maybe Maurice can kind of comment with this, is just the importance of how we set up the holiday for ourselves. And I did a video recently. I think it posted last, or actually this morning is posting, like right now, about preloading your holiday based on your expectations. And that in everything in life, but especially the holidays, is we can go in either expecting the bar too high and have this idealistic thing, or we have the bar cast really low and we go in with trepidation. And then what happens? Sure enough, you're disappointed because it's not going to be either of those. Maurice and I talk a lot about authenticity and being centered in our lives. And I think this is a time that really calls us to be really centered, really honest with ourselves, and just not like, just be reflective of what it is that you're expecting and why with the holidays on either side of it. So you can come into it in a genuine way and be relaxed. And then, whatever happens, happens. And it's kind of not a big deal, right? It's sort of like Maurice, we were talking about, like in the spoke of the wheel. And we've used this
oh yeah,
analogy quite a bit, where if you're living out here where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, it's going to be a bouncy ride, or it may be smooth, it may be whatever, quick turns here or there, but it's always this unexpected stuff that you react to. And oh, look at this. Hello. And as opposed to coming back to the center. And I think holidays is so important to come back to the center of you before you engage in that. Like, what has been your experience, Maurice, and how do you handle holidays?
boy, oh boy.
Oh boy.
I'm going to give you a male point of view, at least the male that I represent. The Christmas tradition is for family, for continuity, for holding things together. And the women, and you guys both just expressed a good version of it. That's what you do. And as a man, I support that. But left to my own devices, which I am, I don't celebrate it at all. But as a family thing, when I had family around me, I certainly, I supported it and enjoyed it just as well. But the women did all the freaking work. The men just, they lifted stuff and moved stuff. But the women were sitting there say over here, over there, no, there, and the guys. That's what we do. That's the difference between us that I've kind of talked about with you, Elisa. We come at it differently. We love what you all do. It gives us a sense of belonging as well, because mostly we're on our own, especially amongst the men. It's a competitive world, you know. It just that's the world we live in, at least in this country. So my version of a did every Christmas they play it. I don't know. I haven't watched television in 3 years now, but I used to watch it, and they would always bring on the movie A Christmas Story. You know, I'm going to get you a gun because you'll shoot your eye out. That one. Well, that's the kind of when I was growing up, that was the world I lived in. That movie was actually supposed to be in 1938, but it was just as extant in the world in 1948. I can tell you that the world was very much the same. The freaking cars looked almost the same, and of course versions. And you mentioned something earlier. I was listening to Kestrel talk. She said that there was a lot of alcohol going on in her environment. Well, that triggered a memory because in my environment it was the same thing, but it wasn't just the family; it was the society that I saw my parents living within. Half the adults I encountered were we used to call it mildly sloshed. I don't know if you might have heard those words along the way, but they were just like 3 beers level of inebriation, which means they could function in society, but they were just kind of sloshing along in the world, and that was their comfort zone. Of course, they didn't have the drugs that are available in the world today either back then. Yes, they were there, but nobody knew about them, and it wasn't a societal thing at all. It was just alcohol primarily. And honest to God, alcoholism, I don't see that much anymore since they banned smoking in the bars. That pretty well killed the bars scene. That's 20 years ago. They did that stuff, at least in Florida. So what you describe is the how the culture is held together within the family. And my point of view from a male is not from that angle, although I certainly see it and appreciate it and support it. But again, left to my own devices, I don't celebrate the holidays. I know they're there. My God, you can't miss them, but
Yeah.
I just don't do it.
I think it's a really good point, Maurice, is like the whole gender expectation. And not everybody fits into this category, but for me, it was the expectation of my mother putting all this effort and time into it. And there was this hyper control. It's just an incredible entertainer. I mean, anybody that came to the house had a marvelous experience, delicious food, beautifully presented, I mean, it was just incredible. But behind the scenes, what I was privy to was this intensity of control and for me, that was a hard one to do. So a lot of my like tips in coming in the holiday are really directed towards women because I feel like we carry that pressure, a different pressure than men carry with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys, you have to really understand. But I know it and I speak about it. Lots of guys don't speak about it. Lots of guys don't speak about a lot of things, by the way. However, the household, the family, the cultural traditions are carried by the women in society. You really have a hell of a burden. You don't get rewarded for it or acknowledged for it all that much, at least in a financial way, which is, in this society, that's the measure of success, how much money you have or what you possess. But that's all surface stuff. The continuity of society is held together by the women of the society, period. Mm-hmm. And the men just stand on the side and say, I don't know what they did, but I'm glad they did it.
Well, this is a tip for men out there is don't sit on the sideline, offer to help,
Absolutely.
If there's nothing that you can do to help and nothing's given to you, that's fine, but then be appreciative. And for women, verbal appreciation is what really lands for us. It's not,
Good.
well, of course you appreciate me. Don't you know that? It's like, no, I don't know that unless you really tell me or show me in a very direct way. So
Thank you.
that's how
Yeah,
you can
thank you.
help guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a tip for any men that are watching this, if there are any.
Oh, there is. Men watch this. I get really great compliments on our chat from men, and men also sharing our stuff with women in their family. So
Good,
now,
good.
did you see an uptick, Kestrel, in your psychotherapy practice? I don't want this is old world stuff. This is old Kestrel world, but you bring that wisdom with you into your new reset world. But did you see was it a big uptick on stress at this time and your clients needing more assistance?
Yes, especially people that were in transition, divorces and the navigating where the kids go. And
Yeah.
I actually had that experience too. That adds a whole other flavor to it.
Yes.
And the alcohol, it does make me laugh, Maurice. And it's important for us older people to talk, just get some of this down because so many things are changing. But just watching It's a Wonderful Life, there's a scene where the Uncle Billy is at the wedding or something, and he's sloshed and he falls into a garbage can, and that was funny. And Uncle Billy was just cute old Uncle Billy, who had to like tie things around his finger to remember stuff. Um, so, and then just think about the concept of wearing lampshades. And I was just talking to a friend about that. That was just like, oh yeah, I saw Aunt so-and-so wearing a lampshade. Like, when's the last time you saw someone wearing a lampshade? But that was, New Year's was about that, right? So that's all the kind of glorified bubbly and whatnot, and it's very glamorized. And then, there's
The reality, the
the
reality of it.
reality of it.
Yeah,
And
the reality is you got a bunch of adults that are checking out because they can't cope with being centered and being present in the things. So they're using alcohol nowadays, marijuana, whatever, which will give a totally different flavor to the holidays if everybody's stoned marijuana as opposed to sloshed on alcohol. But that right there is the issue, I feel, is that why does everybody have this feeling it needs to check out with it?
That's a good point. I want to comment on that too. That is what a lot of people are doing. They're doing the surface world and they're not happy with it, and they're not involving themselves any deeper into anything else. Rather than go inside and say, what am I going to do? They just retreat from everything, and they stay shallow, and they never go anywhere. That they're living out in the frickin' spokes, out by the rim where you were talking about, as opposed to in the center. We're talking about a wagon wheel, Kestrel. You understand that? I understand, but just keep you up to date with where we're at. It's anything but to be introspective, and to take responsibility for your own life. Any kind of a diversion that is presented that allows the easy answer, they take, or a lot of people take, until you decide for yourself that this is not satisfactory anymore in this lifetime, and I'm going to do something about it. And when you start looking that way, then your world changes for you, and your exterior world will look pretty much the same, but your internal world is going to work differently. And the more you involve yourself in this kind of pursuit, and it's not looking for the next guru down the street or across the water somewhere. You just have to open up to your own damn self, and the answers will come to you. And they're not going to be mystical conversations necessarily. It's, damn it, turn left here instead of going straight for once. That kind of thing. It's simple. But the more you do that, the more self-reliant and self-confident you become, and the more you see the surface world is a bunch of character actors in a movie.
Yeah, your movie. So if you don't like your movie, move your characters around, right?
Do
And
that.
that's the whole thing. You can come into, let's say, like a practical tip. You're coming into holiday and everybody is going to be in your family is living at this level. And there's going to be, this is where the conversation is. This is what's going on. So let's talk about how, like some practical tips for our viewers. Like if this is your family and you're plumbing the depths now, but you're going to go be with your family, like what, because you can change the whole thing, your whole experience of it because you've changed. I've got some ideas with it, but I'd love to hear, Kestrel, does anything resonate with you as far as like tips for people? Like how can you change your experience of holiday when you're the deep thinker of the group?
My first thing that comes to my mind is take nothing personally.
That's a
So,
hard one too.
right, because especially if people are imbibing or whatever, a friend of mine who never drinks says why he doesn't is that, and then he'll be the sober person at a party, and the volume starts to raise and nobody's listening. So if you're in a place with, practicing self-awareness and you have sensitivity to the energy of people around you, it's almost like you have to do some breathing before you go in. And I have a friend who says that when he gets in those social situations, that he pretends it's a video game. So it kind of goes along with the sim. It's like, and then another thing is like, okay, so what am I supposed to learn here? So the pain comes from when you have expectations. Oh, this year's going to be better, and this person's going to love the gift, and you just go into this place that you want to create a reality, but in essence, you're walking into a whole bunch of people that are on different levels of awareness. So I would say those are some kind of tricks, and just everyone's your teacher, and then to just not hold too tightly to whatever the you know, unmet need of past Christmases and how, because I felt this, you want to just make everything perfect. And that was like, oh, I'm going to break pattern from, you know, tragic Christmases. And it was fun. But I think a lot of it, especially for the women, Maury, because we've put so much love and effort into this planning and want to make a milieu and
I
want,
know.
loving stuff. And it's just a wonderful exercise to let go of control and attachment and still bring your resonance. I'm really into the resonance lately, and which I'm sure we'll be talking about, but it's conscious and not conscious, and you work with it. And so, a friend of mine's daughter used to say when she was little, she'd say, Daddy, why is it that healthy people can go into a sick room, people that are sick, and get sick, but why can't a sick person go into a healthy room and get healthy?
Good
So,
question.
right?
Good.
So I feel like that I always remember that in terms of um, holding yourself in a healthy place. And
Yeah, I
just
love
not
that.
taking anything personally, really, because especially as sensitive people and people, Maury, which you recognized when we first met, you're like, oh, you're used to using your mind and having everything be perfect. I'm like, how did he see that? Well, but especially if you're like that, and then add some hormones and maybe a little wine, and you're just like, eh. So, you
I recognize that face. I've worn that one many times. I know one of the things I've had to learn over the years is letting go of my perfectionism, for one thing, that I inherited, and it was patterned for me, but by the female, my world, my mother. I don't really know my grandmother lineage because they weren't around, so I'm not sure what that was. But I have a feeling that there was a long line of them. But to let go of that perfectionism and just allow things, so the floor is not cleaned up, something spills, the table's not set just right, or God forbid you decide to use paper plates.
Wow.
My mother be turning in her grave if she knew I'd put out paper plates, but I'm kind of okay with it. I'm kind of, I'm okay because nobody else seems to care. So
Boy,
as I like,
that wouldn't have flown 50 years ago in any household that had a roof over it anyway.
but I do love, and everybody knows that's come to my house. I do entertain and I put beautiful food out and I like to use nice plates and stuff. But when I have a lot of people, I have nice plastic plates or I get nice paper plates, and make it easier on me. But, it's that expectation, I think, is the real the real key there is we come in because when we have expectations, it's like we open ourselves up. You know, talk about energy and resonance is like we open our world up to allow it to affect us. You know, so you're going as this big open wound into a room, and what's going to come in is just all the negative stuff that's attracted to that resonance. And there, boom, you know, you wonder why you're all buffeted around. It's a horrible experience because you completely opened yourself up. You know what I mean? It's like it's going in, and if you don't care, not in a bad way, but I don't, you know, that's everybody else's business. It's not about me. I can go in the room and I can really seal myself in this like bubble of love, you know, where I'm exuding love. I can just sit in the corner if everyone's really drunk out of it loud and, you know, it doesn't, I can just sit there and be very lovely and have and gracious. And then, you know, you'll be surprised who might be attracted to you and attracted to that energy and would come up and really like engage, you know, like have a conversation with you. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Kestrel, but I think that the whole resonance thing is just careful what you're preloading within yourself coming into it.
I think
Makes all the difference.
I think what Kestrel offered was really insightful and worthy of checking off and embedding in your awareness. Don't take things personal. And people like us have a tendency to take everything personal because we're experiencing our life in a conscious way personally. More so than the average bear, I can tell you that we're not just reacting to everything. We're responding a lot to what happens to us. Big difference between the words. You know that, both of you know it. But part of our nature is to be, you know, accepting of things. Because we go in without an agenda. Really, we're not playing nearly as many games of you know, of our past life has taught us that maybe this gameplay and business is not really the right answer or the satisfactory answer, right? Well, I know that's right. Anyway, don't take it personal. If you can just remember that, that'll keep you. That's one of those boundaries that, and men have boundaries too. We're just a little more rigid about it than the women seem to be because you guys, you want to accept, you want to give love and expect and receive it, and you have to be open for that kind of thing. If you got a boundary up, it's like a defense barrier. But knowing what you're going into, a mixed bag of awarenesses and people in a confined area, you're not going into a safe space in that regard. You're going into a space where you have to be a little bit selective in what you involve yourself with. And you have to know the difference between and recognize it quickly. And that's another skill set that you guys have. You have that ability to sit in a room and feel things and describe them to yourself in an understandable manner so that you can behave as an adult as opposed to a child being buffeted around by unknown factors all of the time.
Well, yes, very, very true, Maurice.
And you become what you call, what I call a wise woman.
Hey, Maurice, can I respond to that for a moment when you said creating a boundary? So as someone, high on the scale of empathy, being a therapist,
yes,
one of the challenges was or going into any situation and you maybe even border on psychic or intuitive and yet you want access to that information, right? That's a full spectrum awareness. So I was taught that instead of having this boundary, that you allow the things to actually go through you. So it's transmutation of energy.
That's a good point.
So that's the next level because the blocking can do in a pinch. I'm not great at it. I'm not great at that, nor am I great of being in a situation where my face is going to hide what I really think. So, but that was introduced to me, 15, 20 years ago about the transmuting. And then I did go to Sundance for a while, which is all about transmuting energy, and it's quantum mechanics, and that's a whole nother level. But so to allow it to go through you, but it's not going to stick. It's not going to hurt. You feel something, and that, again, this is going towards your wisdom storage of your wisdom. But you don't let to have it sit and go through you and move it out.
That's a version of don't take anything personally, which is what you said initially. And that's exactly true. That's pretty much, that's how I get along. Pretty much anything can happen around me. It doesn't stick to me very long. It sticks for a little while. I feel things, but I don't hang on to them for a terribly long period of time. And I move on from them. And that's another thing that people tend to do. You probably got a smoother way to say this, but they hold on to things far too long and they don't let them go. They stay focused on something that has already happened in the past where they could, if they transmuted it, as you just said, which is a good way of expressing it, then it's no longer an issue with them. They've dealt with it and they've moved on. But that's
the other little tidbit, Maury, is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
bingo.
So, and then, because I could tend to be like, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just shake it off. Well, if you don't allow yourself to feel the pain, same thing, and be open to it. But it's to the extent that you feel it. Feelings are not facts, and we can stand a lot of them, and it's so much easier without resistance. So feeling it, and then knowing that little fine line between when it becomes suffering, and you can, it, we all know it, it's just that little thing like something's not fair. And I don't like being a victim, but like, oh, and it's just like this narrative breathing down your throat.
Yeah.
So
It's an
I like
attachment.
I don't like to attach to suffering. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that whole thing. I kind of want to go back a little bit in the boundaries and the transmuting because it is next level. Thank you for clarifying that. Because a boundary isn't putting up a hard thing and sealing yourself off. It's not about being in this wall, then you can't experience the joy and you can't experience the pain. Nice, but you don't get the joy of it either. For me is really about centering in. This is something we talk about often, Maurice, is like what's right with the person and as opposed to what's wrong with them. What's right with the situation as opposed to what's wrong with it. You can only transmute things when you can look at somebody and see the angel within them, and that what they're saying, it's just wounds, it's just all this drama, and you just let that go through, but you connect with the angel within that person. And when you do that, it's so to me, it's amazing that the angel comes out. That would be like the higher part of the person, as opposed to the reactive part. And that's what really then you feed, what you're feeding your environment. I want to feed in people like what's right about somebody as opposed to looking like, oh my God, and they're this, because we can all be sensitive. And as a sensitive, we can really see things in people. I mean, really, really see things, but you can see it in them, but it's not the truth of who they are. So seeing something in somebody is like the first step. The next step is what you do with that, with what you see. You don't judge it. You don't, obviously, you're not going to take it on. You don't try to change it. It's just kind of nothing. It's just a wound. It has nothing to do with who the person really is. So I don't know if that's making sense, but for me, that's part of how I transmute things, and coming into holiday with family, I have some time with my partner's family and then a few weeks with my family. It's really going to be about focusing on what I love about them, what's right with them, the blessing that they bring to the room and not what's wrong. And then I feed that energy. And then that is the energy that'll grow around me, no matter if it's just within myself or connecting with one or two people in the room and the rest are oblivious because they're high or sloshed. It doesn't matter. I'm feeding my environment because that's what I'm looking for. And the
right,
rest.
You have to be situationally aware too. And you are that. And but in being that way, then you're not open. You're actually stepping back and looking and feeling what's really going on. So you know how to appropriately respond and make your decisions. You can't just go in with an open heart. You have to be somewhat focused on what you're doing in a gentle way, of course. With the intent, you're talking about what your intent is, but you may be walking into a minefield that is not intent on nearly what you are, and you have to be situationally aware enough to realize and recognize that. And you are It's just that that's part of the story too, is all I just wanted to mention. And that's, again,
Yeah.
that's more male oriented than it is female. But women, you need to do this. You have to be aware of, and you are in all kinds of ways. You're aware of shit I'm not aware of. I know that. Um, but you have to be, if you're going to do it in a mature way, in a responsible, self-aware way, you have to just you have to be bigger than just the average bear running around that isn't aware of anything.
Right. I think and you can probably address this one well, Kestrel, is situational awareness is super important, but it's like step one. It's like being aware of things is step one. Okay, great. You're sensitive. You can see all this stuff. But then what? Are you going to get all judging and reacting on this stuff? It's then what do you do with this awareness? Does that make sense? What are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna focus on it? Are you gonna feed all the situational awareness of all that's not right that's happening? I mean, I don't know about you, but I want to just feed my field with the things of reality. So how I feed the field with the things of reality is I focus on that. I focus on what's right. It may be one little thing about the whole night, but that will be the thing. It'll be like the leverage into you just see how, the world changes around you and even people change. I mean, some of the most profound changes in my world and my experience in my family has been because I made a change. And I made a change and it threw the whole damn balance off and it all got better. And nobody knew why. It just, one day it's like, oh, wow, look at, we all grew up a little bit. It's like, yeah, because I stopped playing into that pattern. I stopped reacting to it. I stopped being a part of it, being sensitive to it, taking it on and as mine and, and my responsibility to change anybody else. I changed me. It changed everything.
Well,
Bottom line.
for
Yeah.
you, for sure. Uh, you asked Kestrel though, so I'll shut up.
Oh, no, you can jump.
All right. Okay. I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Elisa, and how much how you show up. And then the other question is, okay, so when you shift your resonance, um, there's a saying, nature abhors a vacuum.
Mhm.
So you can change your resonance. That's theoretically and actually draws things to you. Sometimes there has to be a space made. So the other little, to be observationally aware and always in gratitude. With some people, you can come into that room, and if you're resonating in a place, there might be a level to which you repel them, or they don't understand what to do with what your light, perhaps. Um, and so to hold that loosely as well. And again, like you said, show up and like, what do I love about everyone? Yet sometimes some of those people may leave you, and then there'll be some grief about that once again. Let it wash through you because it's better to have an empty space that's waiting for something that resonates with you. Having said, we're born to our families, and so they're for us to practice and other people in our life. It's like, oh, this is a teacher,
I love that. That is such words of wisdom is just let people self-select. Just be you and they will self-select. Some of them they don't the new you and some people are just they do not resonate with it. And you don't have to kick them out of your life. They'll naturally gravitate away. And there's some mourning with it, but actually if you look deep inside, there may be some relief with it because what that presence was doing in your world wasn't working, because it didn't resonate and they,
And I
exited
will
stage
say that
11.
the time that it takes from the point at which that person leaves and there's some sadness, when you choose to not suffer and feel the pain and not suffer and not hang on. I've had that experience in 24 hours. Someone I didn't know, a situation just shows up and I go, whoa. So it really doesn't take a lot of time in between that if you don't hang on.
It's
It's
a choice to hang on to, isn't it? Where pain is not so much a choice, it happened. You said it's inevitable. I was going to bring that back up, but it came up between the two of you as I sat and listened. How about that? But pain, you're right. Pain happens. Bad, what we call, some people call bad things happen to everybody. But the suffering is a choice. And if you realize that, you may feel a measure. It's like everything else. The higher you get in the vibrational level, so to speak, I can use that language in here and get away with it. Okay. The way, that's a good way to go too. The higher up the vibrational level you become, the shorter the experience of the suffering, because you recognize it and you don't choose it intentionally, awarely. If you're not aware it's happening, you choose it because you don't know you're doing it. You're just doing it, and people spend a whole lot of time suffering that it's a choice and they don't realize it. But once you realize it, you can face it and then do something about it and say yes or no. And if you choose to suffer, well, that's your choice.
And
And
then you're aware of it, that you chose it. So that's a
that's
blessing right there.
a blessing, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
You know,
that happens in all kinds of situations. Some of them really personal. Some of them long-term relationships. Something happens that breaks that relationship, and then what do you do with it? You sit there and suffer for it, or do you see it for what it is and say, okay, that it was painful, but I'm not going to suffer from it. And that's a self-inflicted wound. I think it literally is. It's a self-inflicted wound.
you know what we're talking about, you guys, right now, what we're articulating is breaking pattern. This the whole thing is like you break the pattern, but then once you what do you do once you broke pattern? And Kestrel, I mean, we've all done this. Us three have done it. I'm sure a lot of people listening have done it, but it's a really, I think it's like a high art. A high vibrational art is how to break patterns successfully. And Kestrel, you just have done this a few years ago in such a huge way by leaving
Yeah.
a life that you had, a successful life, and all the family, friends, and everything out on the East Coast, and you broke pattern for a very specific reason. You can share that or not. It doesn't matter. That's your personal stuff. But that's like a massive break. And it's not, I mean, we can think like, oh yeah, break pattern, I'm done with that. But there's tailings, right, that come with you. I mean, there's stuff that we have to meet and overcome through that process, right? Breaking pattern, I think we think it's like romanticize it, like it's this. And then there's this world. Sometimes it's like, sometimes it's quick, but other times, right? I mean, what's your experience with that, Kestrel? Because you just did it in a huge way, that there's things to reprove about it, or there's things to move through the new terrain that may be wanting to pull us back into the other part.
Right. Well, there's times of transition are always meaty. So it is right. You figure out what's ending to break the pattern, and sometimes headlong into the unknown. Um, and maybe you have a sense of where you're going, but that in between time can be tricky. Um, and that goes into a whole nother, we should do
It's,
a show about that,
yeah.
because and even when your resonance changes, but everything in the third dimension has to shift. And that's why it's such a rich time. And I have learned from doing it, that there are certain ways, and you need support often to get from the point of transition to the new beginning. So it's really identifying what you're letting go. That would be like if you're slowing it down. Like I usually just do stuff and then like, oh.
What just happened?
And it's a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of self-acceptance, patience, gratitude, gratitude. And when it gets really where there's seems to be no ground, I had a friend say to wake up in the morning and say, what does God have for me today? It could be, what does the Oversoul have for me today? And relaxing and not getting uptight, which can be tricky when there are all these demands and you're in some form of state of survival, which it can be if you really break pattern. You're really out there. And that's one of the things that is just making that connection with the Oversoul and being loose in your plans. Like in New York, I had, a list of 10, 15 things and blah, 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 blah. And something about being out here, it's like tell God your plans. And you have to get, people would say to me, you got to like slow your roll and be in the flow. And that took a couple of years. Like, what? It's like, oh, I do. And Maury knew this about me. Like, you just accomplish and you accomplish and accomplish. And um, I have found through my break of pattern that the more one pushes on that, talk about suffering, so there's ways to right your head as you're breaking pattern, which is some of those things about giving it over. And so what is my higher self? And then, so make, instead of a list of 10 things, make a list of 3, so whole, like, will you accept as getting something done? And maybe that something done that day is to do nothing. That's a tricky one. Like, I always have to,
That's a
at
big
least I
something.
accomplished this. At least I went to the store,
Kestrel, I promise everybody, we're going to be doing like a whole big masterclass series on breaking pattern. And we've talked about that, Kestrel and I. So that's coming up soon here. But I think everything you said, we can bring it right back to the immediate discussion is the holidays. What is a beautiful place. I mean, that speaks to my heart is waking up in the morning before you go to bed, before the holidays, is just turning it over. In some places they say turn over your higher power, turn it over to God, say your prayers, meditate on it, talk with your oversoul. But for me, it's to get that direction and that support. And it's like, okay, what gift do you have in store for me? And what can I, it is opening ourselves up in the right way. We don't want the boundary there. This is where we want to receive. And it's our higher self, your higher self, everybody in the room's higher selves all want harmony. They all want it to be a lovely experience for everybody. Now, unfortunately, some people don't have, are in communication with their higher self, but you are. And, that's your experience going into the holidays. And we can like turn that over and then just let go of our rigid expectations, right? Our rigid expectations of it's going to have to be, it's planned out like this and that. I mean, maybe if you're cooking the food, we do have to have a plan. So we have to know what goes in the oven and, a schedule like that. But the rest of it is just to, let go of it and just kind of let it flow and be okay with it. I think that's can be really hard for women, especially, more type A kind of women
Mhm.
that are used to
So
running things.
I would say one of the things that floats through my mind is get out of your way and let yourself by.
Mm.
That was
Alan,
Rebel Crone. That wasn't me.
Alan Watts book, In My Own Way. Double meaning there, that's for sure. Take it, get the hell out of your own way. Is what that meant. By the way, you said, so I want to go back. I'm going to get off of the Christmas thing for a moment because you said some things. I know you, Kestrel, for quite a while actually, and I'm referring specifically back to North Carolina. And you know what I'm talking about without going into detail. You have help. You said a version of that. You do have help that you don't see on the surface, but it happens. Things show up that weren't there yesterday, and you couldn't plan. And that's your, I would call it higher self. Some people will call it God. Yes, whatever you want to call your guiding light, that is what it is. It makes things happen around you that you don't even see coming. And and when you're in a crisis situation, they're there. All I can tell you is trust that that's the truth because it is the truth. I've seen that too many times in my life. I've seen it specifically with you, but I've seen it with others, and I've experienced it my own self. And there's another thing too. This is that duality aspect. It's the word is out of my head right now. There's a good word for it, but there's two things going on here. I wrote them down too. This is a this experience we're going through in life. It requires our full participation. We can't withdraw from it. We can, but then we don't experience what is potentially available to us in the process. And that isn't only a selfish, all for me kind of a point of view, but you get to share too. That's part of it too. You get to help other people along their way. This is a full participation. environment that we're living within, and we have to be a full participant in it. We can't withdraw from it. A lot of people do. They pull out of society. They check out. The sloshes, however I phrase that. That was the way society kind of did it when, well, we're all of sort of a similar age, and that was still going on when you girls were growing up. Maybe not as much, but it was still going on because the drug culture didn't really take root in this country until really the late 70s, early 80s across the board at the earliest. And you were around by then, that's for sure. But your parents' world wasn't that. Your parents' world wasn't that at all. And that's what I talk about is your parents' world pretty much in that regard. But okay, I just wanted to make that point. This is a full participation in engagement that we're involved in. So let's do it. And let's do it right.
Yeah. I love that. I did also, Maurice, I just want to like clarify too that people can check out by checking into, tapping into society. A lot of people that are playing the game, they're playing the game, but they've checked out and they think they're full participants, but they're participating in this construct and the illusion that most of like errands and other people are just like, I'm checking out of that. The old the old definition of what it is to be an upstanding citizen. Who wants to be a citizen? I don't want to be a citizen of that. I want to be a citizen of the new world, the new earth, the new things that are happening.
Well, there's people that are making that choice every day.
Yes.
And that levels of awareness. And there's more than just two,
Yes.
You've got the full acceptance, or you got the checkouts. That's just the dichotomy before then the realization comes along. Well, the whole system kind of sucks, and I'm going to do something different. And if that's as far as you get, at least you got yourself out of that. But your journey is far from over. That's available to you in this 3D reality that we walk around in, and you and I have talked around that quite a bit. And I know Kestrel has tons to say about that too. I can read her face. She's not arguing. There's total immersion. Then you withdraw from it, and then you come back into it from a different point of view. That's a third level. And then there's probably 4 or 5 levels above that I don't have words to express, but I'm sure there are. And I'll
being in the world, but not of the world, right? Yeah. So you walk around and you can do things and participate as needed and as called to do, but you're not, your consciousness isn't stuck at that level. Correct. I think that's where like the way showers and the people now that are really can be really helpful. And it's going to be so exciting, Kestrel, to watch how you transmute all the years of your incredible experience and understanding human psychology and the human heart and the human soul, into the new pattern that you created, because there's so many blessings that you can bring to people and to given that skill set, and what, we need help in that, navigating 3D, moving into 4D, moving into 5D. I mean, there's levels go on and on through eternity, super exciting. The levels available to us in this world is maybe a few above that, but it's navigating those new ranges. And, you said something initially, Kestrel, you said that Maurice, you touched on, and that is making space, making space for the new stuff. And that's, you can't, you can't bring something new into the room if there's no space to put it. You've got to create space for it. So create a space coming in the holidays, create a space in your life in general for something new within you, and allow yourself, be easy on yourself. We're the hardest on ourselves. We don't need anybody else to be critical of us. We don't need anybody else to point out our faults we know them. Hard on. So be easy on yourself, and just make space in your heart and your soul and in your mind, and just make this space for something new to happen. Holidays, it's the same old family, same old house we're going to, but it's a new day. It's a new time. You're a new person. Allow space to have something different being. Just see, I have just seen like, I don't know the miracle you're talking about in North Carolina, but my own personal miracles is for me being in the right space and just allow something really special to happen. Like with a family member that's like, I had no idea they thought about these kind of things. I had no idea they had this depth. And there's I want to talk to that person, but it's because there was an energetic neutrality that they could come into and they could be, as opposed to me preloading it. That's a whole bunch of topics I threw out there. That was just a free riff there. But I am very inspired what we're talking about because it's so on point at all different levels, holiday and beyond.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very cool. So what are your actual plans? Miss Kestrel, you may be coming and spending some time with me at the holidays.
I know, looking forward to it. I wanted to pass along a story that my mother-in-law told. She was living in Rome, and she had 11 siblings, I think.
Wow.
And there was one Christmas where they did not have money. And so she would tell me stories about what things were like in the Depression. And I heard them from which is fun to do on the holidays, get stories from the older people, get them talking.
Mm.
And I just adore doing that. But she told the story of how they had no money and they sat around a fire outside and on Christmas Eve and they went around to each person and said, okay, this is not going to be our Christmas forever. And what do you want for Christmases in the future? And everybody got to dream. And she
Oh.
said that was, of all the Christmases with the gifts and the beauty, she said that was her most memorable, beautiful Christmas experience
Mm.
is, seeing the light in everybody's eyes, talking about what they're gonna do in the next year and who they were gonna do it for. And so,
Oh, I love that. It's dreaming. That's the beauty and the power and the magic of dreaming, right? That's really beautiful. My mother grew up in Italy and northern Italy as well, and they were very poor. And so at Christmas, they got literally it was an orange because they didn't have a lot of oranges. So they'd like have an orange, and then they'd get a few pieces of candy because they didn't get candies. But this would be the special treats and maybe some special nuts or something. And that was the Christmas, and yeah, I mean, I wish she was around. I could ask her more questions. She didn't like to talk a lot about her experience there, but I do know that it was very different from the expectation in this country as far as what Christmas goes. But that's sweet because you can direct, like in your family experience, you could direct things like, let's all have a conversation. What would your ideal Christmas, or what would be if you couldn't give a gift, if you couldn't buy a present, what would you give to people? I mean, what a great topic is that? You know,
it
so
is
you,
another way to survive the things that are, if a conversation's getting funny. I'm notorious for this. I would just ask the most left of field, to change the course of again, don't even get attached to that, but I think people love, and especially the older people at the table, people love to tell stories. So if it gets contentious, ask somebody a different thing, just, artistically
break
shift.
conversation, break conversation.
We're going to break some pattern in this darn conversation. But I think it's beautiful. And getting back to that whole thing where things are changing so fast. And so the stories from crones in your family, the stories from the elders about what things used to be like, that's a beautiful, those can be like, I carry that with me. I think about it every Christmas, that story she told me. So,
Aw, I
yeah.
love that. I love that's the real things, right? Is the wisdom that we have. That's the real thing we can pass on. That's the gold. That's kind of the golden thread that weaves through history and time, is those beautiful experiences and the wisdom. So I love that, Kestrel. And also I want to share with everybody that Kestrel not only would it throw out a question in left field, but she'd probably go in the other room and put a wig on and change her whole makeup and come back in and ask the question like that as a totally different personality.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We've got to go over our little holiday. We're going to go wig shopping.
Guess what we're going to do? We have a new
Have a
comedy
whole
routine.
fast. Yeah.
Maurice was privy to a little comedy routine we did of a mutual friend of ours. It was pretty damn funny. So I'm the straight person. I'm the foil here. I'm the straight person, and Kestrel's the.
You got your angles too. Don't undersell yourself.
No,
But
I'm not.
yeah, you're the
I'm
one
being
that's
modest.
carry it and not laugh, which is a very, it's an important skill for a comedian to be the straight man.
Because
He
we
does it
we
well.
cracked our audience up, didn't we,
Hmm.
Kestrel? Our audience
We
of
sure did.
two were
All right.
rolling on the stinking floor.
They were. I don't know how much it translates past them, but they had a good time. There's
I,
tummies.
I
That
tell you
was
what,
fun.
Kestrel, we dressed her up as Jason from Archaics, and then I interviewed her,
Yeah, and they told me
sent it to her.
the only thing I could say was vapor canopy.
I
Yeah,
forgot if I that was all that. Yeah, I have strict instructions. I go, there's one answer to everything, okay? But then
you
you
never
did go off script, and it was pretty dang funny. So
you
that was a
never did
little.
post that, did you, Elisa?
Oh, I
Uh,
wouldn't. That'd be up to Jason. It was our gift to him to let him
okay.
know that we were thinking of him.
We call it putting it in the vault. And I think that's actually an idea for the more adventurous people. A comedy can get you through so much and can help transmute things that stick, when you can get people laughing. So that might be a fun idea, depending on who your people are, is to just do something off the cuff, a skit, and take on
Yeah,
different personalities and things. And, comedians notoriously are the ones like the Hyokas in a Native American situation, which are on the perimeter that poke fun at what's happening.
Yeah, the
it's
emperor.
powerful medicine, right?
Mhm.
Laughter is powerful medicine. My parents used to, especially my mom, for their grandkids, which would be my nephews, is on holidays and birthday get togethers, she'd always take them in the other room and she'd dress them up, totally in the wig and all kinds of stuff. And then they'd come out of the room and they would do, they'd be these characters, and everybody, we would crack up so much, and they were hysterical. They were definitely ham bones. But if anything else, get the kids to do it, because the kids will do it. They'll be unabashed.
Yeah, they're not so afraid of offending anybody. And
Elisa, I think that's a great idea for this. We should keep rolling with this, the ideas for a better Christmas, um, to get the children involved. And you could actually have them dress up like the parents, get a table, right? And have the kids come in, and your grandpa and your grandma, and like you're having Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, and see how they characterize you. Oh, that'd be fun.
it
You
would.
have to have adults that would be really willing to laugh at themselves.
It's also true.
Roast your family.
Oh my God. Okay. So I got to tell a story. So years ago, we were on like a vacation with another family. And the parents, this is back when we were younger, and the time the parents drank a lot. And so one night, one of the kids had a tape recorder, and they put the tape recorder behind the couch and they taped the parents. And the next day we played it back to them. And I'm telling you, I remember my mom being furious because they sounded like complete idiots. And I remember so bad. Oh, it was really funny.
Destroying the image, destroying the public image.
Self-image. It would be like what parents thought, like, they don't realize, just like, unless until you're straight and you're not drinking in a group. I'm not much of a drinker. I may have a little cocktail, a little teeny bit or something. Unless you stay straight, you don't understand really what happens when everybody's high or sloshed or something. And it is pretty amusing. We think we're really funny and very, articulate and stuff. And, mostly
Yeah,
not.
mostly not is right.
Mostly not. Oh my God. It's so true. Okay, you guys, we've been going about an hour here. Is there anything else that we want to add into this conversation about the holidays? I'll kind of go round table, and if something you want to kind of summarize things. Maurice, I'm going to give you first shot at it. Any sort of words of wisdom?
No, because you girls did it really, really well. Better than that's not one of my expertise things. I do it differently for myself for my own reasons. But what you guys talked about, I really enjoyed listening to what you had to offer.
Oh, Well, what would you say to other men, Maurice? What would you say to your fellow guys out there as far as in the holidays, how they can support their partners or the women and
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, appreciate the efforts that the women are doing to make it happen for you. That's what I tell the other men. That's what I will tell the other men. Step back from your your daily grind and appreciate what the hell's going on around you for you. The efforts that the women are making. I love women, you know that. I do. I appreciate them too. And you're right. You made a comment earlier at some point. You need to be told verbally, yeah, shown non-verbally by little gestures and little things that you do, but tell them to their faces. Let them know that that they're important, that women are important to you, or the woman that's in your life. Tell her and make her feel. Take some space out of your own life. Get out of your garage or out of the engine of, underneath the hood of your car or whatever the hell else you do as a quote hobby or engagement, and take them out. Treat them once in a while. Make them feel special. Women need that. I swear to God, you girls need that. And a man is well served if he pays attention to that advice. I'll tell you that. So that's
yes,
my
appreciation goes a long way for
certainly
everybody.
does.
That's a superpower. Yeah, that's one of the big superpowers. Thank you, Maurice. I
You're
hope
welcome.
men hear this and take it seriously.
I hope they
Kes-
do too.
Kestrel, my dear, any
I don't
final wisdom bombs?
I don't think I could top that. That was really beautiful, Maurice. And something I don't think about enough, and the difference that makes in a person's experience, you know.
Yeah.
And you're not, because oftentimes women are not doing it, we want to be perfect and all that and set a place and create a space. But it is something that we just do. Um, and so just
It's
any
part of your nature.
appreciation is
It is. I've said that to Elisa before. It is part of your nature, and
Mhm.
you do wonderfully at it. So
So I would say
Oh,
just across the board for everyone, that thing we talked about, don't take it personally. Be open to positive, different things. And above all, stay in your heart space. Um,
mhm.
Keep from getting frazzled if you can. Be in the flow, all things that is taking lots of years. It sounds so easy now.
I know
And
it's
simple, but
true.
not easy. So, yeah, this is good crone advice.
It's good crone advice, and the appreciation thing too is for other women. You walk into another woman's space and she's made dinner, she's done things. It's just to acknowledge the beauty she's created. It's not just for men, and it's not just for partners, it's for our friends and family members. It's to just appreciate people. If somebody dressed you can tell they really put an effort in to look nice to come to your house, acknowledge that. Acknowledge those things that people put their hearts into for the
I'd
event, you know.
like to add something to that very point you just made. What you're doing is you're allowing your light, your higher self to flow through you because that's who you are as your higher self, as an aspect of it anyway. The and In a greater capacity than you can tap into in this human form, but you can allow that to flow through. You're doing who you really are when you do that. You're allowing it to happen from that internal point of view. You're aware of it, and as you do it, you love doing it because that is who you really are anyway. You're showing your light by doing
Yes,
stuff like that. Your true light, not your disguised light, your self-defensive light, or whatever the hell your personality at the basis level is. You're allowing your higher self, your greater Eunice, if you will, to flow through you as you, which is what
yes,
that's what part of that growth thing that I talk about a lot with you, Elisa, is involved in is learning to turn that on and become who you really can be, and who you really are actually. And we're the only ones that are, as we walk around, we're the ones that are not opening up to it. That's the choice. That's one of the choices that are available to all of us. You, we're at a point where we see that now. How do we do that? We ask. And we don't ask the guy across the street. We ask ourselves internally. And you know what? Internally, we get answers. Events happen around us that make us aware of, son of a bitch, how'd that happen? You look and you say, I know how that happened. Because universe, if you will, your higher self, if you will, stepped in. That's the help I'm talking about. When I say you do, when I was referring to Kestrel's story earlier, you have help. And the person that's reflecting it or being there, doing the thing that they're doing, they may not be aware of it in that context, but you can be. And if you are, you open up the valve, if you will, even more. And it becomes even more easy. You flow with the flow.
Well, you get the flow going and you're the catalyst for the change in the environment, right? Because your light is going to shine on the light of the other person. It may be hidden in there, but that's why we look at what's right with somebody. That's why we appreciate, because we want to highlight and we want to feed that. And that's how it changes. That's how we can change our holiday. We go in, we let our light shine, we let it shine on other people's light. We're not going to shine it on and give our energy to what's wrong with the thing and the negativity. Just ignore that. Ignore it. It is a little.
Right. You don't need to know the consequences of you being you. That's not required. You just trust that what you do is exactly what needed to be done in the moment that it happened, and walk freely with that.
Yeah. That's a good place to rest. It's a good place to rest in.
It's as free a space as I know to be.
Yeah. I love that, Maurice. Thank you very much for reminding all of us that that's the starting place for everything. That is the starting and the ending place. I say it's not endings. It is starting and endings. That's so worldly, but it's the starting place, the right starting place. And I just hope for everybody out there that you can pick some gems up from this conversation and to just be reassured that this, you're not alone. This can be a challenging time, but you always have the immortal within. You have your higher self to lean on. You've got those invisible ranges that love you and that are powerful and that are waiting to be accepted and to be accepted inside of us. And especially now, we really, in the world the way it is, we really are in desperate need of harmony. We're in desperate need of light, like the channels of light getting woven through our relationships, and to really form a new matrix, a new grid work for a new world to form up. And what a beautiful place to start will be this opportunity at the holidays, whether you're with family or friends, or I get to be with Kestrel, which is going to be so much fun. And maybe we'll do a video for you. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to just kind of see what comes out of it, where if it's in the vault or if it's going to be in prime time. We don't know, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Be spontaneous. Be spontaneous. You'll be fine.
We'll be fine. We might even do a Maurice one.
Oh, boy.
You want to be Maurice Kestrel?
There's nothing much
I can do it. But I'm telling you, we just got to go get those wigs and we're rolling.
Maurice cases, we lose the wig.
Right.
I'd laugh. I know that. I'd say, really?
Oh, such fun times ahead. And thank you all for being with us. And we wish you the most blessed holiday that you can dream up and you can imagine, dream big for it and then be realistic, and your responsibility is right here. So take that light with you in and, just let it shine. Just let it be and let things happen. It's not you're not in control of everything. It's not your problem, other people's things. This is your only thing you can control. So, and off and much love. And as always, peace from within, because that's the only place where it can come from. Have a great holiday.